The autumn rain splashed against the patio glass and trickled in silent streams to muddy pools near the sliding door. I stood unblinking and watched it, relieved for dry, cozy shelter, and yet wistful for the future my haughty recklessness has prematurely extinguished. I closed my eyes and recalled another rainy day years ago, when, sitting cross-legged in a circle on the cold tile floor of the kindergarten room, we answered our teacher's question,
"What do you want to be when you grow up?"
Many of the replies included mommies, teachers, nurses, and stenographers, for this was 1966 and few girls in Grover's Park aspired to much more. I, however, had already visited Europe twice with my parents and was more intrigued with airline uniforms than fancy landmarks and old museums. I happily blurted, "stewardess," but never in my most fanciful reveries did I imagine living out my days as a cat. Looking back, the clues foreshadowing my destruction were everywhere, but how then was I to know they were born harmful? All had logical explanations. The hypnotizing gray shadow flitting by an east second-floor mansion window was the result of a cloud passing near the sun. The leer from the short, faintly hunched businessman at Sue's diner was merely the act of a dirty old man. The beckoning mist at the woods' edge around twilight was nothing more than cool water vapor, swirling as it met the day's humid air and condensed. To think I had once considered it dangerous to hide behind the general store neck with the 20-something lead singer from the Centennial Band. At any point during my expedition into the woods, I could have turned back, but there is something electrifying about roaming outdoors at night. Underneath the serenity of a starry sky, long after human and domesticated mortals have yawned and slunk to bed, another world of predatory creatures rises and begins their day. I'm not talking ghosts here, but ordinary beings, opossums, foxes, owls, and even bats. The alien sounds and shapes of the dark scared the other girls, but they enlivened me and I ached to run free. Yet even I wasn't foolish enough to enter a deteriorating building after midnight. I only had planned to inhabit the grounds until dawn, the first person courageous enough in this hick little village to do it, and return with the triumphant report that the mansion's ghost legends were false. Hadn't quite worked out that way. I was blissfully tearing across the estate grounds just past the ramshackle gazebo when a shrill cry ripped into the night. Not a brief screech such as one might hear from a barn owl, but a long, painful wail that escalated higher and higher until it ended in a bone-chilling shriek. I started, tripped, and snapped face down into a half-buried cobblestone. I lay stunned while the shock of the accident washed over me. My head throbbed, my skin smarted, and my limbs refused to move. When the first shock slipped away, I painfully sat up and gingerly shifted my arms and legs. Nothing, thankfully, appeared to be broken. Then I felt blood running from my nose and trickling into my mouth, and I nearly panicked. What if I'd broken it? Would it ruin my modeling chances? My mother had been shopping my portfolio around, and 3 agencies had expressed interest. More worried about my looks than the rest of my physical condition, I sat on the damp ground for a long while and pressed my jacket sleeve across my face until the flow slowed. I briefly considered turning back, but pride intervened, for I simply refused to become another victim of a small-town myth. Pressing my palms on the ground to steady myself, I slowly stood and gathered my bearings. The gazebo was behind me on the left, which meant the mansion had to be straight ahead. I took a step. It didn't hurt as much as I expected. My body hurt too much to run anymore anyway, so what did it matter? I had all night. So I hobbled toward the mansion. As I walked, I kept a sharp lookout. What had caused that awful sound? I appeared to be the only one out here. I wasn't frightened, yet I did hope that cry would not be repeated. Just as I rounded the front of the old house, there was a crunching of tires and a bright beam of light. At first I thought the girls had called the police, but as my eyes adjusted to the scene, I saw the vehicle was not a squad car. The door opened, and a man in a long dark coat emerged. I recognized him immediately. That was the businessman who had scrutinized me yesterday afternoon. I edged away, preparing to bolt if necessary, confident I could outrun someone as old as he.
My word! It's the little girl from Sue's diner.
Well, the term little girl rankled me, and I momentarily lost my mistrust of him. Most people consider me older than 17, even now when I wasn't wearing makeup, and the fact he hadn't tried to sound condescending made it worse. "Sir, you are trespassing on private property," I said in my most peremptory tone. "I could have you arrested." I didn't understand what was so funny. Apparently he was too stupid to understand the trouble I could cause him.
Arrest me? Little girl, do you realize I sit on the village board?
Before I recovered from this shock, he appeared closer and said,
You're bleeding.
"Still?" I dabbed the back of my hand against my nose. Just a few spots of blood remained. His tone had been flat, unconcerned. He had made an observation, nothing more. Well, I wasn't worried either. It's nothing.
Nonsense. And look how swollen that hand is. I noticed you limping, too. What happened? Did someone hurt you?
No, I fell. He was forcing me to answer questions and I didn't like it. I was losing control of the situation, so I had to regain it quickly. I just didn't know how. The older people back home were easier to dismiss. It's nothing. The man looked so suspiciously at me, I began doubting the truth of my words.
Little girl, do you realize you might have a concussion, whiplash, or even a hairline fracture in your neck?
I'm tired of the phrase, little girl, and I tossed my head defiantly to prove the fact that nothing was broken. I'm sure I'm fine. All the while considering the merits of walking away from the building until he left. I had no intentions of returning to the servant's cottage, but how would he know that? In the car's headlight, I saw the man's mouth twist into a frown.
Nevertheless, I recommend you go inside and allow me to dress those wounds before I take you home.
Go inside the mansion? With him? I remembered the smirking way he had looked at me at Sue's diner. Did he really think I was so naive? So what if he was a board member? Even if he could prove his mighty status, he certainly had no business on these grounds in the middle of the night. Technically, I didn't either, but I wasn't going to admit that. I shot a haughty, "I don't think so," and started to limp away. But he stepped closer and laid a firm hand on my shoulder.
I can't fix you up out here.
With his other hand, the man fumbled inside a back pocket. I tried shaking him free, but he was obviously stronger than he looked. Instead, I looked at him with all the scorn I could muster. "I'm not going in there with you. Good night."
Look, you chit!
Surprised he wasn't forcing me to enter the mansion with him, I shuffled closer to the headlights to read it. Dr. Abner Rothgard, board certified in neurology, hematology, immunology, cardiology, endocrinology, obstetrics, internal, and veterinary medicine? Okay, all right, so the man was no dummy, but I still felt cautious. What business would such a prestigious doctor have at the mansion, and at this hour too? Handing the card back to him, I said, "If you're really a doctor, why are you at the estate in the middle of the night?" Somehow my words lacked the bite I hoped they'd have. Dr. Rothgard did not answer, but walked back to the car, shut off the ignition, removed his medical bag, and locked and closed the door. Then he faced me again.
Really, I should be asking you that question.
"Well, I'm staying at the servant's cottage for the weekend." I put my hands on my hips and cocked my head. "Your turn," or being sound intimidated.
Heavens, what an impertinent child! Since you must know, I was securing the building for the night.
Well, this time I ignored a slam of my youth. You couldn't do that during normal business hours? The tours ended hours ago.
A hospital emergency prevented it. I won't force you to accept medical treatment, but as a doctor and village official, I do have to act. Therefore, I will simply contact the police and call for an ambulance. Good night.
Wait! If you called the authorities, I would return as a laughingstock with my tail between my legs. I had never been humiliated, especially by an adult, and I had no intention of starting now. I thought fast. If I accepted his recommendation, I could afterwards pretend to hide, and then hide amongst the trees until he departed and proceed with my scheme. Surely he'd understand I couldn't accept a ride from a stranger, especially since I didn't have too far to walk. How likely was it that a man with his upstanding reputation in a tiny village should have evil intentions, especially a man wearing a black Pierre Cardin trench coat? I decided not to look. In the meantime, Dr. Rothgard slipped his hand into a deep coat pocket, brought forth a set of keys, and dangled them before my eyes.
It's the gold old-fashioned one.
Really angry now at his arrogance, I snatched the keys and stomped up the porch. The gold key fit perfectly, the ornate knob swung easily, and I pushed open the heavy door. The man was obviously trustworthy, but I still had to get rid of him before he asked too many snoopy questions. Tomorrow he'd probably have a moral fit and report me anyway, but why should I care? I'd be long gone.
Now then, am I redeemed?
Maybe, I said, hoping levity would hasten the situation. You haven't treated me yet.
So I haven't.
Dr. Rothgard said as he removed the keys from the locket and pocketed them. He looked at me with such an odd expression, I couldn't tell if he was smiling or sneering.
But I soon shall.
I started to follow Dr. Rothgard into the mansion, but he raised a hand.
Wait here. No need for a second mishap. I will bring a light.
The darkness followed him in one gulp, and his footsteps faded into silence. The night was strangely still, and I wondered how late it was now, since even the insects had ceased their chirping. The old gray stone building, with its hanging shutters and leaning porch, was the ideal setting for a horror movie, but only because of its remote location and poor condition, for I was still not afraid, only annoyed at this interruption in my plans. I knew ghosts didn't exist, and even the slim possibility of getting really hurt on the neglected estate had disappeared now that someone familiar with it was keeping me company. Not that I'd shared that bit of information with the other girls. A chill shuddered through me as the pre-dawn air pulled around me, and I pulled my jacket collar over my neck and wished it was warmer. Perhaps after the doctor vended my wounds, I'd head for the broken-down gazebo. It might be less drafty than spending the rest of the night in the open. A white cat slipped around the mansion's corner. I blinked, but the creature was gone. Had I imagined it? Then I heard a meow, but it was only the creaking of the old floor. A wafting light sliced through the blackness. Dr. Rothgard had returned, carrying a long taper candle in one hand and a cloth bag in the other.
Follow me.
He said, handing me the bag.
And keep this on your nose.
Dr. Rothgard turned left and led me into a room at the front of the house. I obediently placed an ice pack on my nose and shuffled after him. I wondered for a quick minute where he had gotten ice in this broken-down, forsaken place, then foolishly decided good doctors simply came prepared to do their jobs in all circumstances. I sneezed twice under my ice pack as I entered the room, and then saw why. Even through the dim light, I perceived the thick dust smothering the parlor carpet, heavy curtains, upholstery, and the curved wooden legs of the many chairs and tables. Lacy cobwebs swathed the pink silver picture frames on every wall, the blue vases resting on the mantel, the pink bric-a-brac adorning each table in this room. Dust webs hung in long strands from the oil lamps like tinsel on a Christmas tree. The wavy vine pattern of the peeling wallpaper was barely distinguishable under its grimy haze. Dr. Rothgard gestured to a two-seater near the fireplace and set his medical bag on a table beside it.
Sit down.
On that dirty thing, I began until I remembered my ruined clothes. $200 in Miss Emmeline's boutique, gone. My zeal for spending the night at a reputedly haunted mansion had faded. I was bone-tired and eager to get the examination finished as quickly as possible. Wearily, I dropped onto the couch. I couldn't wait to curl up somewhere, anywhere, and go to sleep. Dr. Rothgard squatted in front of me.
Slip off your shoes.
My shoes? Why my shoes? It's my nose that's bleeding. For the first time since I'd run off, I hesitated. My confidence in outwitting Dr. Rothgard was ebbing. Somehow, I had lost my advantage over him. Perhaps I'd never really had it. I clenched my toes, for he must not see my shaking and think he intimidated me. Then I caught a lingering scent of fine pipe tobacco, and I relaxed. He didn't stink of cigarettes like my parents did. Inwardly, I scolded myself. I had allowed the combination of fatigue, the room's eeriness, and local legend to overwhelm sound judgment. Dr. Rothgard had seen it hurt to walk. He was just being a doctor, that's all. I pried away first one shoe and then the other. He picked up my left foot, and I winced, but did not pull away. Beginning with the toes, Dr. Rothgard gently pressed all over my foot, ending at my swollen ankle.
Nothing's broken. It's only sprained.
He repeated the process with my right foot. I took a deep breath and settled down. He was simply a harmless country doctor. I should be thankful for his help. Why spend the rest of the night unnecessarily hurting? How victorious would I look in the morning, bruised and banged up? Even worse, what if I had scars on my nose and was hopelessly misshapen? It was probably better to fix it now, before I had permanent damage. Dr. Rothgard lifted the ice pack and set it on my swollen hand.
Hold it here.
I steadied the bag. With easy practiced fingers, Dr. Rothgard felt along the bridge of my nose and down both sides.
Nothing's broken, and the bleeding is finally stopped. You don't want to do that here, you know. It's very dangerous.
I nearly laughed aloud. Who really was the gullible one? It's dangerous to bleed in this place? Don't tell me you believe the ghost legend too. Dr. Rothgart stopped, fingers resting lightly on my cheeks, and looked sharply at me.
Do you take me for a fool? Haven't you realized you're miles away from the nearest hospital?
Before I could answer, he placed his hands firmly on each side of my neck.
Does this hurt?
Before I could answer him, I felt an odd twist, a paroxysm of pain, and a loud snap. The room spun wildly and sucked me into a swirling tunnel of darkness. I flailed my arms and legs, vainly trying to touch a side, the bottom, anything. But I could have been soaring through outer space for all the good it did me. I couldn't tell if I was falling sideways or straight down. There was nothing to touch, nothing at all. Even worse, I was not alone. Giant falcons ripped through the opaque curtain of black. Slowly they encircled me. Bit by bit they enclosed me. In terror I pushed through the ebony abyss, frantically trying to soar away. Razor-sharp beaks pecked my scalp, my eyes, my cheeks, my spine, my fingers, my toes. I opened my mouth to scream. Silence echoed back. An arrow whizzed past, narrowly missing an ear. Tiny jaws clamped onto my leg. Instinctively I kicked and watched my attacker, a large black beetle, slip into a void. A snake wrapped its clammy body around my leg and stared at me with glowing yellow eyes. A doleful wail reverberated in my head as an emaciated form floated past, swiping the air with clawed skeletal fingers and gazing into nothing with sightless hollow eyes. A platform raised. Thousands of white cats, all dressed in black choir robes, stood and screamed in pain. Elongated, moaning humanoids melted in hoary, droopy streams. Miles ahead, a bright light blinked, then vanished. Instantly, I knew relief and safety were beyond it. I just had to get there. I just had to. I tumbled down a staircase and landed with a hard thump. Two pairs of hands quickly lifted me up. I was floating high in the air through a cold, narrow passageway. I heard muffled sounds of dripping water. I smelled moldy dampness. The elusive light grew